1939, Britain went to war. But how did this leave a nation of kids? There are last survivors, and they don't have long to tell their stories. Elderly people across the country recall their childhoods in the war, but few voices are actually heard. I wanted to speak to a few people who grew up during World War II to find out what life was like. It seems that it was such a different world back then, making it impossible to truly imagine what these young children faced. The story starts with Helen Walker, who was born in 1939 in Liverpool, a city which was heavily bombed throughout the war.
I have a clock which was bought for Dad's timekeeping when he was on the docks. Mum lifted me out of the tram and put the clock in my place to get out to our new home that was in June Street, where we eventually lived. Hitler bombed my pram were some of the first words. Fortunately, I was not in it at the time. And my dad, I never knew whether he would be coming home from his job. The aims for the docks, you see. Well, our house was bombed, and we went to live in June Street, and we had a shelter in June Street. And we still use that shelter long after the war was after. You just go in there, and we felt safe in there. It wouldn't have saved you from anything. It was just a shed, technically, with a bit of iron over the top. But my brothers used to use it as their den. They used to chase me out. They used to say, go and get some. You can only come in if you can bring some bread and some potatoes. All the houses were demolished, and you would see just bits and pieces left from where the people were living. And we found a little bike and dragged it out. No wheels or anything. My brothers shored it up with some bricks, and I was able to sit on it. And I used to sing, the American songs, the Carousel and other ones that were out at the time. And I used to imagine I was going on these big, big adventures on this bike, my little brick bike, all that sort of thing, And I remember all the sweets were on ration. You couldn't buy sweets for love nor money. And there used to be, in the park, in the North Park, round the corner, they used to have a bit of a fair. This was as time went on, about 5-6 years on into, as the war was just, you couldn't get sweets for love nor money. And every so often they'd say, they have a notice that the sweets are going to be on such a shop on such a day. And when my mother sent me out very fast early in the morning one Sunday morning, and you know what? Every sweet had gone out of the shop. They're very few and far between, the clothes. You couldn't get clothes. You had to have clothes coupons to get clothes. And so the lovely lady down the road used to send lovely dresses and things for me. I was quite well dressed, going to school as well. Like people would, they wouldn't waste anything, They'd say, does this little coat do your little one? And they'd wash it and make it lovely and, things like that. No, everybody were kind to one another. They were so good, because they realised that they've got a life to live now, and they're lucky to be alive.
Do you remember when the war ended?
Oh, yes, it was all big. We had all bunches around the streets and everything. It was amazing. Everyone making cakes. Oh, it was fantastic. Everyone dancing till all hours of the night, and money wasn't spared. It was great, yeah.
Helen's story was not all that different from my next interviewee, Greta Brooks, who was born in 1933 and grew up in Derby. Greta recalls the war with great fondness as an exciting part of her life.
The best thing was when there was a threatened raid or the sirens went, because you were in class and you were doing lessons and suddenly everything stops you. The sirens go, or the teacher would blow a whistle and that was it. You get to your feet and you head for the shelters. And that was much better than lessons. We used to do that. And we used to do that 2 or 3 times. It was real. There were German planes overhead. Not to bomb, where we were, but heading for Derby, for Rolls-Royce. They wanted Rolls-Royce because Rolls-Royces were, Spitfires were engineered, I don't know, the engines came from Royces, the Spitfire engines were Rolls-Royce.
The closest that Greta ever came to danger was when a bomb dropped by her house in a field that her and her friends called Topfield.
Oh, Topfield, yeah, we had a bomb drop in Topfield. And I remember all us kids shot up there to the bomb, but the army were there. The army was, I think they were sick of us kids and they were shooing us off. And one soldier said, and we believed him, he said, if you don't go, he said, I'm under orders to shoot you. And we thought, oh, we better go then. We believed him. I believed him. Don't know whether the boys did, because some of them went and some of them didn't. To say we had, the war brought us kids quite a bit of fun.
On Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Oh, the Americans, we loved the Americans. We children loved them and the girls loved them, the men hated them. Because they had things. They had chocolate and they would give us kids sweets and things. And whilst war or no war, you don't accept sweets from strange men. Not many we didn't. When the Yanks gave us chocolate, we took it gladly. American servicewomen were the first to get nylons because they came from America, nylon stockings. But I was a kid, they didn't mean anything to me. What the hell did I want with nylons? I was in socks. But the girls, try to think what they did for a pair of nylons.
My final interviewee is Ted Raymond, who was born in 1938 in London. He too remembers the war in a fond and nostalgic way. Ted was very eager to share his wartime stories, since he feels as though this is his last chance to document them.
We were bombed out. We lived at number 24, and I think it was about number 16 or something, had a bomb dropped on it, and then destroyed that house and a couple of others. We then moved round to the next road in with my grandparents. It's always been a mystery to me how my mum could leave 2 little kids with the grandparents when there was bombs dropping, But there you go, that was it, wasn't it? That was life. People sort of say to me, weren't you frightened? Well, not really, because it was the norm. I didn't know anything else. It was perfectly normal. Didn't everybody have wars? That's what it was. So then I did start school when the war was on. I can even remember my first teacher, Miss Green. Then the next thing was, oh, your dad's coming home, the war's over, and we had a party in the street. And so in walked this fella through the door. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know him, and sort of picked me up, and I'm thinking, I was scared to death. I wasn't scared of the bomb, I was scared of him. 2 or 3 years later, perhaps, they started to rebuild the houses. In the meantime, us kids used to go out to play with walls out. I mean, today it would be terrible, health and safety and all that, but we loved it, you know. Anyway, they then rebuilt the houses, and we moved back in to what was our old house, same place, same number and everything, you know. And but there's lots of little things like I never saw a banana till I was 7. See pictures of them. Why I was never evacuated, I don't know. I just don't know. Well, we made it through, so. Basically, I mean, I can't say I was scared or anything. It was just the norm. You didn't have a lot, but you didn't care, you know. I mean, we were always out playing, running about. I'd go out in the morning with my friends, and my mum would say, "Make sure you're back for dinner." You know, she didn't know where we were, but it was safe. Of course, everybody was very neighbourly. I mean, if there was suddenly an air raid, and you were nowhere near home, you could only got to knock on somebody's door and they'd let you in, you know. If you're out and about, come on, quick, you know, used to run down to the underground. But, you know, it's the norm. And, I mean, I'm sure our parents were scared to death.
It is so important that these stories don't just get lost in history. There is so much to be learned by the ways people lived and supported each other during World War II, especially now during a global pandemic.